note sent by E. Porter Alexander, 1st Corps Chief of Artillery, to Longstreet. The time to launch the assault is now. General Pickett is with Longstreet as he reads the note and asks permission to go forward. After a second request, Longstreet nods his head. Yes. Pickett mounts and rides out. The signal to begin the assault is given. The battlefield of Gettysburg goes. Lee has envisioned 15,000 troops stepping off, but in actuality 12,500 line up on Seminary Ridge. 1 mile away, the Union troops wait and watch as the magnificent and terrible spectacle of massed infantry line up for what is now obvious to all. The officers of the South raise their swords for family, home, and country. Forward! As the massed brigades, 9 in all, with 2 in support, step out, the unsilenced Union artillery begins to respond from Cemetery Hill to Little Round Top. The batteries fire into the advancing Confederate lines. Men are blown into the air, mangled, wounded, or dead, but the remainder continue forward. They believe in Robert E. Lee. As they begin to reach the Emmitsburg Road, Pickett's 3 brigades angle to the left, all now focusing their attention on a small copse of trees on the ridge. Both flanks of the Confederates are struck. Ohio troops strike the Confederate left, turning them back and inward. Vermont troops strike the right, causing horrible damage to the Confederates as they rush past them towards the copse of trees. They are over the Emmitsburg Road, charging up towards the rock wall that runs in front of the trees and then angles up the ridge to the crest. By now, 6,000 Union rifles have joined the Northern artillery, devastating the ranks of the Confederates. General Armistead, Pickett's last brigadier standing, raises his sword, jumps on the rock wall. Come on, Virginians! Now, beyond belief, they are in amongst the Union artillery and infantry. The fight goes, and the struggle for the angle sees men shout, punch, club, stab each other. And as seconds become minutes, time stands still. And then, as quickly as it began, it ends. The great wave that rolled over the green ocean is broken by the blue rock. Of the 12,500 soldiers who began the charge, only a little over 6,000 will return. As they come back, the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, his hair just a little grayer, steps out of the woodline. Sitting on his great warhorse Traveler, with hat off, Robert E. Lee meets his men. It is all my fault. I asked too much of him. While Pickett's charge was coming to its final moments, 3 miles east of Gettysburg, at the intersection of the Hanover Road and the Low Dutch Road, Union cavalry would stop Jeb Stuart's cavalry from disrupting the Union rear. And with a gallant but futile 5 p.m. cavalry attack against the extreme Confederate right, the Battle of Gettysburg was over. General Robert E. Lee had forgotten one important element of this war. All of his victories were on Southern soil. This was the North. The men behind that Cemetery Ridge rock wall were Pennsylvanians defending their home. They were backed up by regiments from New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Michigan, Ohio, Vermont, Massachusetts, all the soldiers of the North. That night when General Lee learned the magnitude of his loss, he would say, "This has been a sad day for us, a sad day." Lee might now have known that all the roads from Gettysburg could lead to Appomattox. In the hindsight of history, President Woodrow Wilson, the first elected Southern president after the Civil War, would say of his heritage that he would honor the courage of those who fought, but he was glad they lost. They were and are brave Americans, and this poem speaks well for them. But as they carried their torn red battle flags into the twilight of their lost cause, they marched straight into a legend that should live as long as the American people care to remember anything of the American past. For the Union soldiers, Their words came 4½ months later, November 19, 1863, the dedication of the National Cemetery. The keynote speaker was Edward Everett of Massachusetts. He spoke well and long, over 2 hours. While he spoke, a tired and worn man sat nearby. He was the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. And while he waited to make a few appropriate remarks dedicating this cemetery, I hope that somehow he knew of the American future. Why would 51,000 total casualties on both sides, including over 7,000 dead outright, have to be sacrificed? So that Teddy Roosevelt could be bullied for America, that Black Jack Pershing would lead the All-American Division and save the world for democracy in World War I, that Amelia Earhart would fly over the oceans, brave and true, that Dr. Jonas Salk would give us a cure for polio, and General George Patton would lead the Third United States Army against the Nazis at Bastogne, and his relatives would die on this field wearing Confederate gray. That Ira Hayes, a Pima Indian, would help raise an American flag on Iwo Jima. That a man named Jackie Robinson would stand up at home plate, Ebbets Field, Brooklyn, New York, and when he swung his bat, America would cheer. That Dr. Martin Luther King would have a dream. Neil Armstrong would step on the moon. And a lady named Krista McCullough would reach for the stars. She wouldn't make it, but she would reach. Mr. Lincoln would be proud to know that the people of these United States would elect presidents from the North and the South, from East and West, truly one nation under God. And Mr. Lincoln would know that that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion was truly worth the horrible price that was paid. And then finally his moment came. Mr. Lincoln stood up, and in less than 3 minutes, he told the Americans of that day and every American yet to come why it was that we, the Americans, were willing to give the last full measure of devotion. It was simple to explain. Why? So that this nation under God should have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people, shall not perish from the earth. At about 4 p.m. on July 3rd, a short distance from where you now sit, this nation became indivisible, and the long road of liberty and justice for all began. Thank you for visiting us. Have a safe and pleasant stay in Gettysburg.